The emergency alarms rang through the Galactic Council chambers like nothing anyone had heard in centuries. Ambassador Threll rushed to his position at the main console, his crystalline body glowing bright orange with stress. Around him, delegates from 100 different worlds scrambled to their seats, confused voices filling the vast hall. High Chancellor Myra floated at the center of the room, her energy form pulsing with concern. She raised one glowing appendage and the room fell silent. The massive view screens flickered to life, showing a sector of space that made every delegate freeze in their seats. Sector 47, the Forbidden Zone, the Quarantine Sector, Commander Rax of the Kellian Defense Fleet stood at the tactical display, his four eyes moving rapidly across the data streams. His voice was steady, but everyone could hear the tension beneath it. 3 hours ago, our long-range sensors detected movement at the edge of the quarantine zone, multiple vessels. They emerged from beyond the quantum barriers. A wave of shocked whispers spread through the chamber. Dr. Kellen, the chief xenobiologist, stood up from her seat, her tentacles twitching nervously. That cannot be right. Nothing has come out of that sector in 12,000 cycles. Nothing could survive there. Threll brought up the historical records on the side screens. 12 millennia ago, our survey teams detected a biological catastrophe on the third planet in that system. The world they called Earth. A plague had appeared, something we had never seen before. It spread faster than anything in our databases. It consumed organic matter, rewrote genetic codes, and showed no signs of stopping. He displayed images from the ancient archives. A blue and green world, beautiful from orbit, but the surface scans showed the horror beneath. Cities gone dark. Biological readings spiraling into chaos. The infection spreading across continents in days. The Council of that era made the only choice they could, Threll continued. They sealed the entire sector with quantum barriers. They placed warning beacons on every approach vector. They marked it as a death zone and forbade all contact. We believed everything in that sector was dead within a standard decade. Commander Rax pulled up new data, his clawed hands moving across the holographic controls. That belief was incorrect. The vessels we detected are broadcasting on ancient communication frequencies, and they are sending a message. He activated the audio feed. Static crackled through the speakers, then a voice came through. It was organic, warm, and unmistakably alive. This is Captain Marcus Webb of the Terran Exploration Fleet, representing the United Earth Coalition. We are broadcasting on all known galactic frequencies seeking peaceful contact. We understand our system was placed under quarantine protocols. We come bearing our complete medical and technological records as proof of our safety. We have waited a long time to meet you. We come in peace. The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted questions, demands, and fears all at once. Myra had to pulse her energy form brightly 3 times before order returned. Ambassador Vorn of the Hegemony, his scaled face showing clear fear, stood up. Terran? Human? These are the species from the plague world? How is this possible? Dr. Kellen was already analyzing the incoming data streams on her personal console. Her tentacles moved frantically across the controls, pulling up genetic information, biological scans, and medical records the humans were transmitting. What she saw made her freeze completely. Chancellor, her voice came out as barely a whisper. You need to see this immediately. Myra floated to Kellen's station. The genetic data appeared on the main screens for everyone to see. The human genome was laid out in intricate detail, and woven through every strand of their DNA was something that made the entire council chamber go silent, the plague. It was still there, but it was not destroying them. It had become part of them. This is impossible, Kellen said, her voice shaking. They did not cure the infection. They did not eliminate it. They integrated it into their very biology. Every human carries the plague as part of their natural genetic structure. It is dormant, controlled, symbiotic. Threll's crystalline body dimmed to a dark purple, a color of deep concern among his species. They evolved with it. They merged with the very thing that should have killed them. What kind of species can do that? Commander Rax brought up tactical scans of the human vessels. The ships are holding position exactly at the barrier threshold, just as our warning protocols instructed. 17 vessels total. But our deep-range sensors are picking up something more concerning. New images appeared on screen. The Sector 47 system was alive with activity. Planets showed industrial signatures. Space stations orbited multiple worlds. Communication networks crisscrossed the entire system. Energy readings suggested massive population centers. They built a civilization, Rax said quietly. Inside the quarantine zone, they have colonies on multiple planets. Orbital stations. Industrial complexes. They have been growing and expanding for thousands of cycles while we thought they were dead. Ambassador Vorn stood again, his voice rising. This is a nightmare. We locked them in there with a plague that could end all organic life, and instead of dying, they thrived. What else did they survive? What else did they adapt to? Another transmission came through, this time with visual data. The main screen showed the interior of a human ship. Captain Marcus Webb appeared, a bipedal creature with smooth skin, bilateral symmetry, and eyes that showed intelligence and warmth. He wore a simple uniform and stood with relaxed confidence. "Honorable members of the Galactic Council," Marcus said in perfect galactic standard language. "We understand our emergence must be unexpected. We have spent generations monitoring your civilizations from within our quarantine. We learned your languages, studied your cultures, and prepared for this day. We know what you feared 12,000 cycles ago. We know why you sealed us away. But we are not that plague anymore. We have changed. We have grown. We wish only to join the galactic community as peaceful neighbors." Behind Marcus, other humans worked at control stations. They moved with calm efficiency, their actions coordinated and purposeful. The ship's interior looked advanced, clean, and organized. Dr. Kellen studied every detail of the transmission with scientific intensity. "They appear harmless. But we cannot trust appearances. We must understand what they truly are now." One detail caught her attention. In the background, sitting on a control console, was a small plant in a transparent container. Its leaves were a deep crimson color, unlike any plant in the galactic botanical databases. It seemed to pulse gently with its own bioluminescence. Mara made her decision. "Open a direct communication channel. We will speak with Captain Webb, but the quantum barriers remain active until we fully understand what we are dealing with." She paused, her energy form flickering with uncertainty. "Commander Rax, I want a full report on that sector. What happened there? How did they survive? And what else might be coming through that barrier with them?" As the Council prepared to make first contact with humanity, none of them truly understood what 12,000 cycles of isolation had created. The humans had not just survived. They had become something the galaxy had never seen before, and they were ready to show the universe what Earth had taught them about survival. The diplomatic chamber had been prepared with extreme caution. Force fields layered upon force fields separated the human delegation from the Council representatives. Medical scanners lined every surface, monitoring for any sign of biological contamination. Armed security forces stood ready at every entrance. Though everyone hoped they would not be needed, Captain Marcus Webb walked into the chamber with 3 other humans. They wore simple blue uniforms with no visible weapons. Marcus smiled politely at the assembled council members, his eyes taking in the incredible diversity of alien life before him. Beside him walked Dr. Elena Rodriguez, their chief medical officer, Engineer Thomas Grant, and Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka. Their security liaison. High Chancellor Myra floated in her containment vessel, studying the humans carefully. "Captain Webb, you and your people are the first to leave Sector 47 in 12,000 cycles. You must understand our caution." Marcus nodded respectfully. "We understand completely, Chancellor. If our positions were reversed, we would take the same precautions. We have brought our complete medical records, genetic databases, and historical accounts of what happened to Earth. We want full transparency." Dr. Kellen moved closer to her scanner displays. though she remained behind the protective barriers. Captain, our records show that Earth was consumed by a genetic plague, a biological weapon or natural catastrophe, we never determined which. How did your species survive? Elena stepped forward, her expression serious but calm. We did not survive it, Doctor. We became it. Or rather, it became part of us. She activated a holographic display from a small device on her wrist. The plague you detected was called the Genesis wave by our ancestors. It appeared suddenly and spread across Earth in days. It rewrote DNA, broke down biological structures, and killed billions. The council members watched in horrified silence as the hologram showed Earth's population centers going dark one by one. Cities fell silent. Forests changed colors. Oceans churned with strange new life. But some humans did not die, Elena continued. About 3% of the population had a genetic variance that allowed the plague to integrate with their DNA, instead of destroying it. These survivors became the foundation of modern humanity. We are their descendants. Threll's crystalline body pulsed with concern. You carry this plague in your genetic code right now? Yes, Marcus answered simply. Every human alive carries what we call the Genesis factor. But it is not active in the way you fear. It has become part of our immune system, our cellular repair mechanisms, our very biology. It makes us resistant to most diseases. It allows us to adapt to harsh environments. It is why we could rebuild civilization in the aftermath of the catastrophe. Commander Rax studied the tactical implications with his multiple eyes. Your ships, your technology. Show us how you developed space travel while isolated in a quarantine zone. Thomas, the engineer, pulled up schematics of human vessels. We had no choice but to become self-sufficient. Earth's biosphere changed after the Genesis wave. Many plants and animals integrated the genetic factors too. Our world became more dangerous, but also more abundant. We learned to work with the new biology instead of against it. The schematics showed ships built with materials the Council had never seen. Organic metals that grew instead of being forged. Energy systems based on biological processes. Hull plating that could repair itself. Your vessels are partially alive, Dr. Kellen said with fascination and fear mixed in her voice. You have merged technology with biology. We had to, Thomas explained. Traditional manufacturing was impossible in the early years after the Genesis wave. We learned to grow our tools, our buildings, our ships. It took us 8,000 cycles to rediscover space travel, but we did it using methods uniquely suited to what Earth had become. Ambassador Vorn leaned forward, his scaled face showing distrust. And what of weapons? You say you come in peace, but what military capabilities do you possess? Yuki, the security officer, met his gaze directly. We have weapons. We would be foolish not to. But we have never used them against another sentient species because we have never met another sentient species. Our only enemies have been environmental challenges and our own tendency for conflict. Your own conflicts? Myra asked. Explain. Marcus took a deep breath. The Genesis wave changed humanity, but it did not make us perfect. We spent 3,000 cycles in tribal warfare as different survivor groups competed for resources. We nearly destroyed ourselves a second time with nuclear weapons. We had to learn cooperation the hard way. Our unity is hard-won, Chancellor. We know the cost of division. He displayed historical records that made several council members look away. Human cities in ruins. Wastelands glowing with radiation. Then slowly the images shifted. Humans working together. Cities rebuilding with living architecture. Cooperation replacing conflict. We unified our world 500 cycles ago, Marcus continued. Since then, we have expanded to our neighboring planets, built a sustainable civilization, and prepared for the day we might join the larger galaxy. We have been watching you, learning from you, hoping to prove ourselves worthy of contact. Dr. Kellen accessed her medical scanners, examining the humans from a safe distance. Your biology is stable now? The Genesis factor will not spread to other species? Elena shook her head. It is bound to human DNA specifically. We have tested this extensively. It cannot transfer to other genetic structures. We are not a plague vector, Doctor. We are simply a species that evolved under extreme circumstances. Threll brought up a crucial question. Why now? Why reveal yourselves after 12,000 cycles? Marcus smiled slightly. Because we could hear you. Your radio transmissions, your subspace communications, your data networks. We have been listening to the galactic community for over 1,000 cycles. We learned that the galaxy believes in peace, cooperation, and the sharing of knowledge. We want to be part of that. We want to contribute. Contribute what? Rax asked suspiciously. What does a quarantined death world have to offer the galaxy? Thomas answered this time. Survival knowledge? Medical technology based on adaptive genetics. Biological engineering. Environmental restoration techniques. We have spent millennia learning to thrive in impossible conditions. That knowledge could help worlds facing ecological collapse or pandemic threats. The council chamber fell silent as the members considered this. Myra pulsed thoughtfully. You offer to help other worlds with the same techniques you used to survive Earth's transformation? Yes, Elena said. But only if you trust us. Only if you are willing to let us prove our intentions through actions, not just words. Ambassador Vorn stood, his voice sharp. How can we trust you? You carry genetic modifications that break every natural law we know. Your technology is alien to everything we understand. You could be a threat beyond our comprehension. Yuki stepped forward calmly. Then test us. Give us a challenge. A problem world. A disaster situation. Let us prove our methods work and that we mean no harm. We have waited 12,000 cycles. We can wait longer if needed to earn your trust. Myra considered this carefully. Around the chamber, delegates whispered to each other, debating, arguing, considering. Finally, she made a decision. There is a world, she said slowly. Planet Velar in the Outer Territories. It suffered an ecological collapse 20 cycles ago. The biosphere is dying. The population of 3 billion is facing extinction within a generation. Our best scientists have found no solution. The world is too far gone. Marcus met her gaze steadily. Let us try. Send observers with us. Monitor everything we do. If we fail, we return to our quarantine willingly. If we succeed, we prove that humanity can be a valuable ally to the galactic community. The vote was called. After an hour of heated debate, the council agreed by a narrow margin. Humanity would be given one chance to prove themselves. As the humans left the diplomatic chamber, Dr. Kellen watched them go with mixed feelings. Hope and fear warred in her hearts. These strange creatures from a death world might save billions of lives or doom the galaxy. Only time would tell which. Planet Velar hung in space like a fading jewel. Once covered in purple forests and crystal blue oceans, the world now showed vast brown patches where vegetation had died. The oceans had turned murky gray. Atmospheric readings showed oxygen levels dropping year by year. On the surface, 3 billion Valorian people struggled to survive on a world that was slowly suffocating. The human fleet arrived in orbit alongside Council observation vessels. 5 human ships accompanied by 3 Council monitors carrying a team of scientists and security forces who would watch every move humanity made. Dr. Kellen stood on the bridge of the observation ship, watching the human vessels through the view screens. Commander Rax stood beside her, his tactical displays tracking every energy signature from the human fleet. They are deploying something, Rax said, highlighting movement on his screens. Small pods. Hundreds of them entering the atmosphere. Captain Marcus appeared on the communication channel, his image filling the main screen. Chancellor Myra, Council observers, we are beginning the atmospheric analysis. The pods contain sensor equipment and biological samples. We need to understand what killed Velar's ecosystem before we can restore it. Dr. Kellen activated her own scanners. Captain, our scientists have already conducted extensive analysis. The soil has been poisoned by industrial contamination. The native plant life cannot process the toxins. The ecosystem is in a death spiral. Elena's voice came through as she joined Marcus on screen. With respect, Doctor, we need to see it for ourselves. Our methods are different from yours. We might find something your scans missed. On the surface of Velar, the human pods landed across different continents. Each one open to release small drones that scattered in all directions, taking soil samples, air readings, and biological specimens. In the Valorian cities, the native population watched the sky with desperate hope. They had heard that strange aliens from a forbidden sector had come to save them. Though few believed it possible, Thomas coordinated the survey from the human command ship, his displays showing data streaming in from thousands of collection points. The contamination is worse than the reports indicated. The soil toxicity is 60% higher than galactic safety standards. But there is something else here too. What do you see? Marcus asked, studying the same data. The native plants are not just dying from poison. They are dying from trying to fight it. Their biology is rejecting the contamination instead of processing it. They are essentially killing themselves trying to stay pure. Elena reviewed the genetic data from the Valorian plant samples. Their evolutionary path never prepared them for this level of toxicity. They have no adaptation mechanisms for industrial pollutants. Yuki, monitoring the security situation, flagged something on her display. Captain, we have Valorian officials requesting direct contact. They want to know what we are doing. Marcus nodded. Bring them up to the ship. They deserve to know our plans. An hour later, 3 Valorian representatives stood in the human ship's briefing room. They were tall, slender beings with skin that shimmered like opal. Their large eyes held sadness and fading hope. The eldest, a female named Lyra, spoke for the group. The council scientists told us our world cannot be saved. They said the damage is permanent. Why do you believe you can succeed where they failed? Marcus gestured to the holographic display showing Velar's biosphere. Because we come from a world that died and was reborn. Earth faced total ecological collapse. Our solution was not to fight the change, but to adapt to it. Adapt how? Asked another Valorian. A male named Dren, his voice carried frustration born of years watching his world die. Elena brought up genetic models on the display. We are going to introduce modified organisms to your soil. Bacteria, fungi, and simple plants that have been engineered to process the toxins in your ground and convert them into nutrients. Lyra stepped back in shock. You want to release alien organisms on our world? That could make things worse. It could, Thomas admitted. That is why we are being extremely careful. The organisms we will introduce are based on Valorian biology, not Earth biology. We took samples from your own ecosystem and modified them using techniques we developed on Earth. Dr. Kellen, watching this conversation through live feed from the observation ship, felt her tentacles curl with concern. They are proposing genetic modification of native species. This violates Council environmental protocols. Commander Rax watched his tactical displays. The Valorians are desperate. They may accept risks the Council would never approve. On the human ship, Dren studied the genetic models with confusion and hope mixed together. You can make our plants able to survive the poison? Not just survive, Elena explained. Thrive on it. Break it down. Turn your contaminated soil into rich earth again. But the modified organisms will be different from the originals. Your purple forest will become something new. The third Valorian, a younger female named Kessa, spoke quietly. Different how? Thomas showed projections of what Velar could become. The displays showed forests that were deeper purple mixed with crimson and gold. Plants with thicker stems and broader leaves. Oceans teeming with modified algae that glowed faintly at night. Your world will be changed, Marcus said honestly. It will not be the Velar of your ancestors. But it will be alive, breathable, and capable of supporting your people for thousands of generations to come. Lyra looked at her fellow Valorians. They spoke in their own language for several minutes while the humans waited patiently. Finally, Lyra turned back to Marcus. Our people are dying. Our children breathe through oxygen masks. Our forests are ash. If there is any chance your methods can save us, we must take it. What do you need from us? Permission, Marcus said simply. Permission to deploy our biological agents and your help in monitoring the results. This will take time. Months to see initial changes, years to restore full ecosystem health. But if you are willing to trust us, we will not fail you. The Valorians agreed. Over the next 3 days, human ships deployed billions of modified organisms across Velar. Bacterial cultures were spread through the soil. Modified fungi were introduced to the forests. Genetically altered algae were seeded into the oceans. Every deployment was monitored by both human technicians and council observers. Dr. Kellen watched the process with growing unease. They are transforming an entire biosphere using genetic engineering. The implications are staggering. If this works, it will change everything we know about environmental restoration. If it fails, they will have destroyed Velar's last hope. On the 5th day, the first signs appeared. In a forest valley where the soil had been completely dead, new growth emerged. Small shoots of deep purple plants pushed through the toxic earth. But these plants had thicker leaves with veins of gold running through them. They grew faster than natural Valorian plants, spreading visibly hour by hour. Thomas monitored the growth from orbit. The modified flora is taking hold. Soil toxicity in the test valley has dropped 15% in 5 days. The plants are processing the contamination exactly as we projected. But not everyone was celebrating. On the council observation ship, Ambassador Vorn contacted Mara with urgent concern. Chancellor, you must see what the humans have done. They have not restored Velar. They have replaced it with something else. These new plants are invasive. They are spreading faster than any natural species should. Myra reviewed the data herself, her energy form pulsing with uncertainty. The Valorians approve this approach. And the results show ecosystem recovery is beginning. At what cost? Vorn demanded. In a year, none of the original Valorian species will remain. The humans are not saving this world. They are terraforming it into something that serves their purposes. On Velar's surface, Lyra stood in the valley where the new growth had begun. She touched one of the modified plants gently, feeling the strong stem and thick leaves. Tears ran down her face, but she was smiling. "It is not the Velar I knew as a child," she said to Kessa, who stood beside her. "But I can breathe without a mask for the first time in 5 years. The air smells like growing things again instead of dust and death." Kessa knelt and touched the soil, feeling the moisture returning, seeing small insects already beginning to colonize the new plants. The humans said we would have to accept change to survive. I did not understand what they meant until now. Our world is being reborn as something new. Above them, in orbit, the debate raged. Was humanity saving Velar or transforming it beyond recognition? The answer would determine not just the fate of one dying world, but whether the galaxy would accept humanity as allies or see them as a threat. That could not be controlled. And deep in the modified forests. The new ecosystem grew stronger each day. 3 months had passed since humanity began their work on Velar. The transformation was impossible to deny. Vast stretches of land that had been barren wasteland now bloomed with modified vegetation. The forests grew in patterns of deep purple mixed with crimson and gold, exactly as the human projections had shown. Rivers that had run toxic and dead now flowed clear, filled with adapted aquatic life. The atmosphere showed measurable improvement every week, but the galactic community was deeply divided. The emergency council session drew representatives from over 200 worlds. The chamber was more crowded than it had been in centuries. Everyone wanted to voice their opinion on what humanity had done to VL, or High Chancellor Myra called the session to order, her energy form pulsing with the weight of the decision ahead. "We are here to determine whether humanity's actions on Velar represent salvation or violation of natural law. Ambassador Vorn has called for humanity to be returned to quarantine immediately. Others advocate for full council membership. We must decide." Ambassador Vorn stood, his scales gleaming under the chamber lights. What the humans did to Velar is an abomination. They did not restore the original ecosystem. They replaced it entirely with genetically engineered organisms that follow no natural evolutionary path. In another year, not a single original Valorian species will exist on that world. Dr. Kellen rose to respond, her tentacles weaving complex patterns of uncertainty. Scientifically, Ambassador Vorn is correct. The original Valorian biosphere is being outcompeted by the modified species. However, I must also report that Valorian death rates have dropped 90%. Oxygen levels are approaching pre-collapse standards. The planet is becoming habitable again. At what price? Vorn demanded. They have turned Velar into a test laboratory for their genetic experiments. What happens when these modified organisms mutate? What happens if they spread to other worlds? The humans have created an invasive biosphere that could threaten every natural ecosystem in the galaxy. Thrall stood, his crystalline form glowing with measured thoughtfulness. I propose we hear from the Valorians themselves. They are the ones most affected by humanity's actions. Their voices should carry weight in this decision. The chamber's central platform activated, projecting a live feed from Velar's capital city. Lyra appeared, standing in what had once been a dying urban park. Behind her, the new forest grew thick and vibrant. Valorian children played among the trees without oxygen masks. The sky above was blue again instead of the toxic gray it had been for decades. Honorable council members, Lyra began, her voice strong and clear. 3 months ago, my people were dying. Our world was becoming uninhabitable. The Council's best scientists told us there was no hope. They advised evacuation and resettlement, which would have meant the end of Valorian culture and identity. She gestured to the thriving forest behind her. The humans offered us a different choice. They told us honestly that our world would change, that the forests of our ancestors would be replaced by something new. They did not lie to us or hide the costs. And we chose life over purity. A murmur ran through the council chamber. Lyra continued, her words carrying the weight of her people's collective choice. Yes, these forests are different from the ones my grandmother knew. The plants are stronger, faster growing, and engineered rather than natural. But my children can breathe. Our farmers can grow food again. Our oceans are recovering. We have a future. The council offered us sympathy but no solutions. The humans offered us survival. Commander Rax stood, his tactical mind focused on strategic implications. What the humans have demonstrated is the ability to remake entire biospheres at will. This is a power that could be used for great good or terrible harm. How do we trust that they will always choose good? Captain Marcus appeared on another communication screen, broadcasting from the human fleet still in orbit around Velar. Commander, you cannot trust what we might do in the future. You can only judge us by what we have done. We came to Velar with no demands for payment, territory, or political advantage. We came because beings were suffering and we had the ability to help. Elena joined him on screen, displaying medical data. Every organism we introduced to Velar was tested for thousands of hours before deployment. We built in genetic safeguards to prevent uncontrolled spread. The modified species are designed to stabilize within Velar's specific environmental parameters. They will not thrive on other worlds with different conditions. You designed them, Vorn challenged. You can design others. You possess the knowledge to create invasive species that could overwhelm any planet's natural defenses. How do we know you will not use this as a weapon? Thomas appeared alongside the other humans, his engineer's mind addressing the technical concerns. We could do that. Any species with advanced genetic engineering could do that. But we learned something important on Earth during our darkest times. The greatest danger is not the tools we possess, but the intentions behind their use. He brought up historical records from Earth, showing the nuclear wasteland period that humanity had survived. We nearly destroyed ourselves with weapons far simpler than genetic engineering. We learned that technology without wisdom is suicide. That is why we spent 500 cycles building a unified culture based on cooperation before we ever attempted to contact you. Myra pulsed thoughtfully, drawing all attention to her. Captain Marcus, humanity asks to join the galactic community. But you must understand our hesitation. You carry genetic modifications that should have killed you. You engineer life itself as casually as we engineer machines. You come from a quarantined death world that you transformed into a thriving civilization. You are unlike anything we have encountered. Marcus nodded slowly. We understand, Chancellor. We are different, but different does not mean dangerous. Every species in this council was once unknown, untested, and feared by those who came before. You took risks to include them. We ask only for the same chance. A new voice entered the discussion. Ambassador Helion of the Praxian Union, an elder statesman who rarely spoke, rose from his seat. I remember the last time we faced this choice. 8,000 cycles ago, the Kellian people asked to join the council. We feared them because they were warriors, bred for combat with superior tactical minds. Many argued they would destabilize galactic peace. Commander Rax's eyes focused on Helion with interest. His own species' history being invoked. We chose to accept the Kellians, Helion continued. And they became our finest defenders, using their warrior nature to protect rather than conquer. Perhaps humanity is meant to be our healers, using their adaptation abilities to save worlds we thought were lost. Lyra spoke again from Velar. The Council has spent 3 months debating, while my people have been living with the results of humanity's work. In that time, not a single human has asked us for anything. They have shared their technology freely. They have taught our scientists their methods. They have treated us as partners, not subjects. She paused, looking directly at the camera. If the Council chooses to reject humanity, Velar will stand with them. We owe them our survival. We will not abandon them to satisfy the fears of those who would rather let us die than accept change. The chamber erupted into arguments. Some delegates praised Lyra's loyalty. Others condemned it as the desperation of a saved people who could not see the larger risks. The debate raged for hours. Finally, Myra called for silence. This decision is too important for haste. I propose a probationary period. Humanity will be granted provisional council status. They will have access to galactic trade, communication, and cooperation. But their genetic engineering capabilities will be monitored. They will be required to submit all biological modification proposals for council review before deployment. She looked at Marcus through the communication screen. Can humanity accept these terms? Marcus consulted briefly with his crew off-screen, then nodded. We can, Chancellor. We understand the need for oversight. We will prove ourselves through time and consistent action. The vote was called. After centuries of isolation and months of debate, humanity was granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. The margin was narrow, but it was enough. As the session ended, Dr. Kellen approached Myra privately. Chancellor, I hope we have made the right choice. The humans have saved Velar, but I cannot shake the feeling that we have invited something into our galaxy that we do not fully understand. Myra's energy form pulsed with shared uncertainty. Perhaps that is always true when we encounter something truly new. The question is whether we have the wisdom to guide that newness toward good rather than simply fearing it. On Velar, Lyra stood in the transformed forest with Kessa and Dren, watching the human ships prepare to depart. Yuki had come down to the surface to say farewell personally. Thank you, Lyra said simply. For everything. Yuki smiled. Thank you for trusting us when you had every reason not to. Your world is beautiful. Different than it was, but beautiful. As the human fleet left orbit, heading back toward their home sector, they carried with them the hopes and fears of an entire galaxy. They had proven they could save a dying world, but the larger question remained. What else could they do? And would the galaxy come to see them as saviors or as the greatest threat it had ever faced? 6 months after gaining provisional council membership, humanity had quietly established themselves as valuable partners to dozens of worlds. They shared medical technology that saved millions. They provided environmental restoration advice to struggling colonies. They asked for little in return except knowledge and friendship, but Dr. Kellen could not let go of her questions. Something about humanity's story did not fit together properly in her scientific mind. She had spent months reviewing every piece of data about Earth, the Genesis wave, and humanity's transformation. Finally, she found the inconsistency that had been bothering her. She requested a private meeting with High Chancellor Myra and Commander Rax. When they gathered in a secure chamber, Kellen displayed her findings on a holographic screen. "I have discovered something disturbing about the human quarantine," she began. "The timeline does not match the official records." Myra's energy form pulsed with attention. "Explain." Kellen brought up two sets of data side by side. "According to our historical archives, we detected the Genesis wave on Earth and established the quarantine 12,000 cycles ago. But I accessed the original sensor logs from our survey ships. The actual readings tell a different story. The hologram showed detailed biological scans of Earth from the ancient survey mission. The Genesis wave was not spreading when our ships arrived. It had already spread? The entire planet had been infected for at least 2,000 cycles before we ever scanned it. The genetic integration was complete. Humanity had already adapted." Rax's four eyes widened. "Then why did the Council establish the quarantine?" "That is what I asked myself," Kellen said. "So I dug deeper into the classified archives. What I found was a decision made by the Council of that era that was never shared with the general galactic population." She displayed another document marked with the highest security classifications. The Council knew humanity had survived the Genesis wave. They knew humans had integrated the genetic modifications. And they made a calculated choice to quarantine them anyway. Myra went very still. "Why would they do that?" "Fear?" Kellen said quietly. "The Council of 12,000 cycles ago saw what humanity had become, and it terrified them. Here was a species that had merged with a genetic plague and not only survived but thrived. A species that could adapt to anything. They saw humanity not as victims to be pitied, but as a threat to be contained." She pulled up communication records from the ancient council sessions. "Read this." High Chancellor Oryx, who led the council at that time, wrote in a classified memo that humanity represented an evolutionary path too dangerous to allow intergalactic civilization. He wrote that if humans were allowed to spread, they would eventually outcompete every other species through pure adaptability. Rax processed the tactical implications. The quarantine was not a mercy. It was a prison. "Exactly," Kellen confirmed. "And there is more. The quantum barriers around Sector 47 were not just keeping humans in. They were designed to prevent any signals from escaping. The Council wanted to ensure humanity could never call for LP or prove they had survived." Myra's energy form flickered with anger and shame. "We lied to the entire galaxy for 12,000 cycles. We told everyone that Sector was a death zone when we knew it was a thriving civilization being deliberately isolated." "What do we do with this information?" Rax asked. "If we reveal it, the Council's credibility will be destroyed. Every decision we have made for millennia will be questioned." Kellen's tentacles curled with distress. "But if we do not reveal it, we continue the lie. And the humans deserve to know the truth about why they were really quarantined." Before they could decide, alarms began blaring throughout the council station. Rax immediately accessed the tactical network. "We have a situation. A distress call from the Hecker system. Planetary emergency." The three of them rushed to the command center where the situation was being monitored. The displays showed a world in crisis. Heka Prime, home to 8 billion souls, was experiencing a rapid atmospheric collapse. Some kind of industrial accident had released chemicals that were breaking down the ozone layer at an accelerating rate. Scientists estimated the planet had less than 6 months before becoming uninhabitable. Ambassador Vorn was already in the command center, his expression grim. "The Hecker government has requested immediate assistance from the Council. Our environmental teams are already saying there is nothing we can do. The chemical chain reaction cannot be stopped with our current technology." Mara made the decision instantly. "Contact the humans. If anyone can solve this, they can." Within hours, Captain Marcus and his team had reviewed the data from HFY Prime. Their response was transmitted to the Council Command Center. "We can help," Marcus said through the communication channel, "but the solution will require us to deploy genetic engineering on a massive scale. We will need to introduce atmospheric bacteria designed to break down the destructive chemicals. It will change HFY's atmosphere permanently." Vorn slammed his hand on the console. "Absolutely not. We cannot allow humans to genetically modify another world. They have already transformed Velar beyond recognition. HFY must find another way." "There is no other way," Thomas's voice came through. "We have run every simulation. The chemical cascade will destroy the ozone layer completely within 4 months. After that, surface life will be impossible. 8 billion beings will die." Myra faced Vorn directly. "Would you rather let those 8 billion die than accept humanity's help?" "I would rather find a solution that does not involve remaking an entire planet's biosphere to suit human methods," Vorn argued, "every time. We let them deploy their genetic modifications. We make the galaxy more dependent on their technology and less like what nature intended." Dr. Kellen stepped forward, her scientific mind cutting through the politics. "Ambassador Vorn, I must inform you that nature has no intentions, nature simply is. And right now, nature on HFY Prime is collapsing. The humans offer the only solution available." The HFY government representative, a being named Torin, appeared on screen from the dying world. "Please, we do not care about politics or philosophy. Our children are already suffering from increased radiation exposure. If the humans can save us, we beg you to let them try." Marcus addressed the council directly. "We understand your hesitation. We know you fear what we represent. But before you make your decision, there is something we need to tell you. Something we discovered in our own historical records that explains why you have always feared us." Elena appeared beside him, holding a data tablet. "When we gained access to galactic communication networks, we began searching for information about the quarantine. We found fragments of the original council discussions about Earth. We know the truth. We know the quarantine was not established to protect us from ourselves. It was established to protect you from us." The council chamber went silent. Myra exchanged glances with Kellen and Rax. The secret they had just uncovered had already been discovered by the humans themselves. Marcus continued, his voice calm but firm. "We know that the Council of Ancient Times saw humanity as a threat to galactic evolutionary balance. They feared our adaptability would make us dominant, so they locked us away and hoped we would eventually die out or destroy ourselves." He paused, letting the words sink in. "For 12,000 cycles, my ancestors lived in isolation, wondering why the stars were silent, wondering why no one answered our signals. We thought we were alone in the universe. We thought the quarantine was for our protection. When we finally learned the truth, we had a choice to make." Yuki stepped into frame. "We could be angry. We could demand reparations for millennia of forced isolation. We could use our genetic engineering capabilities as leverage or even as weapons. We had every reason to hate the galactic community. But we chose differently," Marcus said. "We chose to prove that the Ancient Council was wrong about us. We chose to show that humanity's strength is not a threat but a gift to be shared. We saved Velar not for political advantage but because it was the right thing to do. And we will save HFY for the same reason whether you trust us or not." Myra felt something shift in that moment. The humans had known they were imprisoned unjustly, and they had responded with mercy and aid anyway. "Captain Marcus," Myra said slowly, "if we authorize your intervention on HFY, will you share with us the complete truth about your capabilities? No more secrets about what humanity can do?" Marcus nodded. "Complete transparency. We will teach you our methods, share our technology, and work as true partners. But in return, we ask that the truth about the quarantine be made public. The galaxy deserves to know what was done to us and how we chose to respond." The vote was immediate and unanimous. Humanity was authorized to save HFY Prime, and the historical truth about the quarantine would be revealed to all member worlds. Over the next 4 months, human teams worked around the clock on HFY. They deployed atmospheric bacteria that consumed the destructive chemicals and converted them into harmless compounds. The ozone layer stabilized, then began to regenerate. The planet was saved. When the galactic community learned the truth about the quarantine, the response was overwhelming. Shame, apology, and admiration mixed together. Humanity had been wrongly imprisoned for 12,000 cycles, and they had emerged offering help rather than seeking revenge. 1 year after emerging from the quarantine zone, humanity was granted full council membership with no restrictions. Captain Marcus stood before the assembled delegates to deliver his acceptance speech. "Our species spent 12,000 cycles learning a simple truth," he said. "Survival is not about being the strongest or the most advanced. It is about adaptation, cooperation, and choosing growth over grievance. Earth taught us to adapt. The quarantine taught us patience. And both experiences taught us that our greatest strength is not what we can do to others, but what we can do for others." He looked out at the hundreds of species represented in the chamber. "We come from a death world that we turned into a garden. We carry genetic modifications that should have killed us, but instead made us stronger. We were imprisoned unjustly and chose forgiveness. These experiences do not make us superior. They make us ready to be partners in building a galaxy where no world has to die, no species has to be feared, and no one has to face extinction alone." The chamber erupted in applause that lasted for several minutes. Dr. Kellen, watching from her seat, felt her tentacles relax for the first time in over a year. Humanity had proven themselves in the most profound way possible. Not through strength or dominance, but through mercy and service. As the celebration continued, Marcus stood with Elena, Thomas, and Yuki, looking out at their new allies and friends. They had come so far from the isolated world that had wondered why the stars were silent. Now, the stars sang with welcome, and humanity had finally come home to a galaxy that was ready to accept them, not in spite of what they were, but because of it.